Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott, I'm the Emperor of Stomaria, and today it is my sad duty to respond publicly to an article that was published by Westarctica in which they insinuate that we, Stomaria, is associated with, linked with, or otherwise influenced by white supremacist neo-Nazis. Now, this is a video that I really did not want to have to make, but unfortunately recent circumstances has forced my hand. So before we get started with this, I'm going to have to give a bit of a backstory, because there are a lot of people out there who will not know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, the reason I'm making this video is because more and more people are approaching us about this particular article that was published by Westarctica earlier this month. So, this is what happened. On the 6th of October, there was an article that was published by Westarctica on their Wikipedia page, Westarctica Wiki, I think they call it. This was an article that was published in the public domain. I did not see this initially, but someone that is not a citizen of Stomaria, but nevertheless supportive of Stomaria, did find this article, and they told me about it. And I was incredibly surprised at just how awful this article was. The venom and the hatred that spewed out of it was plain to see. It didn't hide the fact that it was a hit piece against me and against Stomaria. And this isn't something that's particularly new. I've been in the public space for a long time in micronationalism, and even before, when I was involved in party politics. And so I didn't initially have much of a concern. However, within this particular article, it was trying desperately to allude to the fact that Stomaria was some way influenced by, affiliated with, or inspired by a white supremacist neo-Nazi group. Their reason being is that the author of this piece did not know where the name Stomaria came from. And their natural conclusion was that the name Stomaria is somehow linked to or affiliated with or inspired by the name Stormfront, which is, I believe, the oldest white supremacist neo-Nazi forum, I think it is, in the world. And this is something that is obviously blatantly untrue, not least because we have published many times since our inception where our name is derived from.
The name Stomaria actually goes back to the early 2000s, where the initial inspiration for our Micronation for Stomaria actually came about. So, in the early 2000s, there was an RTS game, a real-time strategy game called Empire of Earth.
The name Stomaria actually goes back to the early 2000s, specifically to an RTS game called Empire of Earth. The inspiration for the Empire of Stomaria actually comes from an RTS game called Empire of Earth. Now, I responded immediately to this privately. First thing I did is I tried to identify the author, which on Westarctica Wiki is not particularly difficult because, like other Wikipedia pages, the edits to the actual article are in the public domain as well. You can see who's editing the articles. And I was expecting this to be some random user using Westarctica's channel to spread malicious lies, hatred, and libelous content regarding Stomaria. But it was not. It was Grand Duke Travis himself. Now, I did not think that responding or messaging Travis directly would bear any fruit whatsoever, since he is the one that published this. So I endeavoured to contact their Prime Minister. I did so. Now, after initially being dismissed out of hand, I did receive a follow-up message relatively quickly after they read the article and quickly apologised and amended it. I then received a message from Travis, which in the email response, trying to climb down from what he had published about me and about Stomaria, said that the article was never supposed to be in the public space. It was supposed to be in the sandbox aspect or period in which they were going to be amending it and editing it going forward. This article was published throughout this entire period, and more than one micronationalist, I can tell you, saw it and informed me about it. So they amended it. The reason being, in case anyone's wondering, the reason that this hit piece, this really awful article was put out there in the first place is because, first of all, they didn't think I was going to see it initially. They were going to work on it. They were going to take this dire, venomous material. I mean, I can publish the entire article, the original article if needs be. I mean, I don't really even need to, and I'm going to get onto this in a minute. But it was just simply awful. And the lies within it were just horrendous. And the reason, the second reason that he gave for actually publishing this piece in such a way was because Travis said that, and I quote, "I don't like you." Now, there was obviously a little bit more to it than that, but that premise, that idea in which I don't like you, so I'm going to spread malicious lies about you, knowingly spreading malicious lies about you, is quite something. And I think it did really strike home for me that the public face that a lot of people give in micronational circles and other circles, if you scratch the surface, there is there's a different person under there. And this person shone through relatively well in this particular article. So this vision that I always had of this jovial, happy, supportive micronational leader was blown out of the water relatively quickly. So the issue in the immediate term was resolved. I demanded that this content be removed. I demanded that any of these accusations that Stomaria was somehow affiliated with these hate groups, because that wasn't the only affiliation that he tried to allude to. He tried to allude to the fact that I myself was a fascist, which again, it just beggars belief, really. But the point that was made is that I wanted this reference removed from this article. The article itself was absolutely dire. It was horrendous, but if you want to publish that kind of stuff, you publish that kind of stuff. But if you try to link us to hate groups, to neo-Nazi white supremacist groups, we are going to publish a public statement about this. And they removed it very, very quickly. Now, the reason that I'm having to make this video now is because that article is still up there. Even though that it's been amended, it is still in the public space. The original article is still in the public space. And this, again, wouldn't be an issue in the sense that it has been amended. So the first thing you see will be the amended version. But if you look through the history, you will see the original version. And I've had another 3 micronational leaders approach me because they have seen the article, they've seen the author of the article, they saw the original article, and they've contacted me about it. They're asking if any of it is true. They're asking what this is about. And again, I had to explain the situation to them. And again, I was not prepared to make a public statement about it. However, more recently, I've had a Stomarian citizen contact me about this. And this is where I'm getting to the point where a public statement has to be made. Because this article is still out there. People are still questioning it. People are concerned about it. And the longer I leave it, the more people are going to know about it. And I would rather throw Travis under the bus rather than constantly have to defend Stomaria's name. I would rather protect Stomaria's interests, protect my interests, protect our brand, our appeal to the wider world over the author of a hit piece. And so unfortunately, this is what I'm having to do. For the record, and in case it wasn't clear, Stomaria has no affiliation with neo-Nazi groups. Stomaria has no affiliation with white supremacist groups. We're not influenced by these groups. We're not aspiring to be like them. We're not affiliated with them. And as a matter of fact, not only has Stomaria publicly and repeatedly condemned fascist groups, neo-Nazi groups, white supremacist groups, and all forms of political extremism that's promoted within the Micronational community, but I myself have spent the entirety of my adult life campaigning against those groups as well. So for a micronationalist to come along, who is supposed to be a respectable member of the community, and publish an article in which they insinuate that the complete opposite is true, that we're in fact inspired by these sorts of groups, is not something I'm afraid that I'm going to take lying down. And as I say, this is not a video that I wanted to make. This is not a video that I was expecting to make, but unfortunately, because the article is still up there, because it's still in the public space, because it's still in the public domain, because micronational leaders are still contacting me about it, because Stomarian citizens are still contacting me about it, this is something, unfortunately, that I'm going to have to do. And if all of that wasn't enough, we were actually warned by Westarctica that we should be using diplomacy with Travis, that we should tread carefully, because he's a mainstay of the micronational community. And those that go head-to-head with him, they don't last long in micronationalism. This vague threat alluding to the fact that we would somehow just disappear or evaporate into the ether because Travis had something to say about us. This just struck me as an incredibly arrogant and pompous thing to suggest, as if he had the power to force us out of the community, as if he had the authority to determine that we weren't worthy of attention or respect or dignity. But I'm afraid, Travis, that is not the case. I don't care who you've forced out of the community. You're not going to force us out of the community. We are building a community of Micronations and Micronationalists that take this far more seriously, that are aspiring to accomplish something far more meaningful. You can't silence us. You can't defame us without repercussions. Stomaria will be here long after Westarctica has burnt to the ground and joined the ranks of the other micronations that you have founded and have also not succeeded. And while I myself am not crass or pathetic enough to go through someone's personal life history, to dig up dirt on how many failures and how many embarrassments you've had to endure and then publish them in an article, I'm sure they are out there. But for the record, people in glass houses should not throw stones, because there are people out there that would not hesitate to publish these sorts of things about you. So perhaps this is worth thinking about before you start publishing these articles about us, or indeed any other micronation. But maybe this is a lesson for other micronationalists out there. If you want to be in with the in crowd, if you want to be a part of that respectable aspect of the upper echelons of the community, make sure you don't speak out against them. Make sure you don't criticize them. Make sure you don't highlight them in a way that isn't glorious or glamorous, because they too might be after you. And if you have a history of doing something, anything in the public space, no doubt people such as Travis will latch onto that and try to twist it in such a way that you are painted as the villain. You are painted as this pariah, as this evil entity that must be campaigned against and destroyed. So, with all of that said, if you want to become a part of the Stomarian community, then please feel free to do so through our Patreon campaign, the link of which I shall leave in the description below as always. You can also find the details of the other micronations that make up Stomaria's empire, the micronations that are actually looking to change the world. You can find their details in the description below as well. But otherwise, if you did enjoy this video, then please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.